appeared in the fetus embryo. And this developmental phase actually depends on the inductive influence of the progencephalic and rhombencephalic organizing center, because we know by this time the primitive brain vesicle are also forming. So those primitive brain vesicle has important inductive influence on this facial development. Okay. And just to revise about the early week of development, we know flat trilaminar embryonic disc is converted into cylindrical embryo, isn't it? Firstly, the three trilaminar or two-dimensional trilaminar embryonic disc is established by the end of third week. So this flat trilaminar embryonic disc is converted into cylindrical embryo by the folding of embryo. If you remember, both craniocaudal as well as lateral folding of embryo occurs. And because of this, it results into the development of three-dimensional cylindrical embryo. And during this process, with the craniocaudal folding, part of the embryonic yolk sac, as we can see here, this blue color representation is the ectoderm, and this red color representation is the endoderm. So part of the yolk sac is incorporated within the embryo in the form of foregut, midgut, and hindgut, isn't it? This we already have studied about the foregut, midgut, and hindgut. And this anterior end of the foregut, actually, the oropharyngeal membrane. This is the oropharyngeal membrane, the future site of mouth. So oropharyngeal membrane separates the foregut from the stomatium, which is the primordium of the mouth. If you remember, stomatium is also the primordium of anterior lobe of the pituitary gland, isn't it? Anterior lobe of pituitary gland is also formed from the roof of this stomatium. So this stomatium, which is the precursor of the mouth, is the important area where actually these facial prominences of face start to develop. So these five facial primordia are formed around the stomatium. So I hope you people are clear what is stomatium. This is the primordium or future site of mouth formation. So around this mouth or around the stomatium, five facial prominences develop. One is the single unpaired frontonasal prominence, paired maxillary prominence, and paired mandibular prominence. So this makes in total of five facial primordia, and these facial primordia are formed mainly by the first pair of pharyngeal arches. They are six pharyngeal arches. I think in next class you will be having your pharyngeal arches, pharyngeal apparatus, bronchial apparatus development. Okay, so remember this face is formed mainly by the first pair of pharyngeal arches by the expansion of neural crest cell within those arches. And these neural crest cells are the major source of connective tissue component, including both cartilage, bone, and ligaments of all the facial and oral regions developed with the help of this neural crest cell. Okay, so now the stomatium is therefore bounded rostrally by the frontonasal prominence, laterally by a pair of maxillary prominence, and caudally by a paired mandibular prominence. Okay, remember boundaries of stomatium is rostrally by frontonasal prominence, laterally by maxillary prominence, and caudally by mandibular prominence. Now, let's go for individual prominence in some detail about individual facial prominences, starting with the frontonasal prominence. So this frontonasal prominence actually is formed by proliferation of mesenchyme just ventral to the forebrain. Now you can see here in the picture, these are the primitive brain vesicle which are forming simultaneously. Okay, so these frontonasal prominence are formed by proliferation of mesenchyme which lie just ventral to this primitive forebrain. Okay, this just ventral to forebrain, these mesenchyme are proliferating to form this frontonasal prominence, which is single unpaired that bounds rostrally to the stomatium. So this is how frontonasal prominence is formed. And within this frontonasal prominence, now by the end of fourth week, okay, almost by the end of fourth week, bilateral oval thickening, as we can see here, this is frontonasal prominence, bilateral oval thickening of the surface ectoderm occurs, which actually is the nasal placoid. So this nasal placoid simply is the bilateral thickening of the surface ectoderm, and this nasal placoid is the primordia of nose as well as nasal cavity. Okay, and this nasal placoid develops these nasal placodes develop bilaterally in the inferolateral part of frontonasal prominence. Okay, inferolateral part of the frontonasal prominence, as we can see in this diagram also. And then after, the marginal mesenchyme around the nasal placodes begins to proliferate, resulting in horseshoe-shaped elevation, the medial nasal prominence or medial nasal process and lateral nasal process. Okay, because of the mesenchyme which is present around the nasal precox proliferate vigorously, it results in this horseshoe-shaped elevated margin having medial nasal process and lateral nasal process. Okay, and as a result, as the mesenchyme around the margin of the nasal placoid begins to proliferate, so obviously nasal placoid will lie in a depression, or it will lies in the furrow. Okay, resulting in the formation of nasal pit, which is the primordia of nostril or anterior nares. Okay, and nasal cavity. Are you clear? First thing is, within the inferolateral part of the frontonasal process, surface ectoderm begins to thicken, forming a convex nasal placoid. And around the mesenchyme present around the nasal placoids begins to proliferate, so that it results in the formation of this horseshoe-shaped elevation having medial nasal prominence and lateral nasal prominence. Okay, and because of this medial and lateral nasal prominence, obviously this nasal placoids will lie in a depression known as nasal pit. Okay, this nasal pit is the precursor of anterior nares or nostrils, as well as the beginning of the nasal cavity. Are you clear up to this point? Are you people there?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so then after the proliferation of mesenchyme, so see here, this is the medial nasal prominence, this is lateral nasal prominence within the frontonasal prominence. Okay, now just below, what is this prominence? What is this prominence? Can you see the cursor here in this picture? What is this prominence? What is this prominence which bounds the stomodium laterally? This one. This is maxillary process or maxillary prominence. Okay, so the mesenchyme present within this maxillary prominence on both sides begin to proliferate, so that they grow toward each other. Okay, mesenchyme in the maxillary prominence, because of its proliferation, causes them to enlarge and grow medially. Both of these enlarge and they grow medially toward each other, and this growing of the maxillary prominence medially pushes this medial nasal prominence in midline, towards midline. Okay, and this results that two medial nasal prominence fuse with each other. See, this is the medial nasal prominence of right side, this is the medial nasal prominence of left side. Because of proliferation of mesenchyme within the maxillary process begins to proliferate and grow toward each other, resulting in pushing of this medial nasal prominence towards the midline. And this results in fusion of the medial nasal prominence with each other to form the nasal septum. Okay, and beside this medial nasal prominence, when fuses, they project into the roof of stomodium and form premaxillary fold, which is the precursor of premaxilla. Okay, now, as we know now, frontonasal prominence has two parts, frontal part and nasal part. Okay, so frontal part is the one here in this diagram. It is represented by this greenish color. Okay, frontal part gives rises to the forehead, upper eyelid, and even the conjunctiva. Okay, this is the derivative of frontal part, while nasal part of the frontonasal prominence give rise to nose, philtrum of the upper lip, premaxilla, and this premaxilla is a small piece of hard palate anteriorly present within the hard palate, just in front of the incisive fossa. If you remember the base norma basalis, okay, as we have already studied norma basalis, the part of the maxilla just in front of this incisive fossa, this bears the initial or the upper four incisor teeth is the premaxilla. So this premaxilla is also part of the derivative of this nasal part of frontonasal prominence. Clear up to this part? So just to revise here, till now we have studied, like, now we know the face develop from five facial prominences. The five facial prominences are, can we list the facial prominences? You have to speak out. What are the five facial prominences? Unpaired frontonasal prominence, paired maxillary prominence, and
Mandibular process.
paired mandibular prominence. Okay, so here in this picture, as you can see here, this is the frontal prominence, these are the maxillary prominence, and this is the mandibular prominence. Okay, and within the frontonasal prominence, till now we have studied like there develops a nasal placoid. Around the nasal placoid, mesenchyme proliferate to form this horseshoe-shaped elevation known as medial nasal prominence and lateral nasal prominence. And because of this prominence, nasal placoids begins to depress, resulting in the formation of nasal pit. Okay, and this nasal pleat is the precursor of nostril as well as nasal cavity. And as the mesenchyme of the maxillary prominence develop grow, the maxillary prominence grow towards each other in the midline, and this growing of maxillary prominence towards midline pushes the medial nasal prominence towards each other, resulting in the fusion of two medial nasal prominence in the midline. Okay, so then after the frontal part of the frontonasal prominence give rise to the forehead, upper eyelid, conjunctiva, while nasal part of the frontonasal prominence also is divided into medial nasal prominence and lateral nasal prominence, which is differentiated from this yellow and blue color in this picture. So the medial nasal prominence give rise to dorsum of nose, tip of the nose, philtrum of the nose, including premaxilla. Okay, while lateral nasal prominence give rise to the ala of the nose. Remember this. Okay, lateral nasal prominence give rise to the ala of the nose. So this is about the derivative of frontal nasal prominence. You have done with the frontal nasal prominence. Now then let's go for the maxillary prominence. So as we are now clear that maxillary prominence are two in number, which forms the lateral boundary of the stomachium, isn't it? This is the stomachium, okay, and maxillary prominence is forming the lateral boundary of stomachium. And as this maxillary prominence, mesenchyme of the maxillary prominence grow, the maxillary prominence grow medially and ventrally, which compresses this medial nasal prominence toward midline. As this diagram is more explanative here, this is the maxillary prominence. When the mesenchyme within the maxillary prominence grow, they grow toward each other medially as well as ventrally, resulting in pushing of this medial nasal prominence towards midline, so that these two medial nasal prominence fuse with each other to form the dorsum of nose along with the philtrum of upper lip. Now here once again focus on the maxillary prominence. This is the frontonasal prominence bounding forming the rostral boundary of stomachium. Maxillary prominence forming the lateral boundary of stomachium, forming the boundary of okay, and this is all about the processes occurring within the frontonasal process. Now we are clear that it consists of frontal part, nasal part with lateral and medial nasal prominences, which give rise to this ala of nose as well as dorsum of the nose. Okay, so now when this maxillary prominence fuse with each other, when the maxillary prominence fuse with the medial nasal prominence, see in the color difference and its representation. Okay, when maxillary prominence fuse with the medial nasal prominence, it results in continuity of the upper lip. Okay, see once again I repeat, when maxillary prominence fuse with the medial nasal prominence, it results in the continuity of the upper lip, upper jaw, and even the nasal pit is separated from the stomachium, isn't it? With the fusion of maxillary process with the medial nasal process, it results in the continuity of the upper lip, upper jaw, and as well as the nasal pit is separated from the stomachium. Otherwise, this nasal pit was continuous or opening. See in this previous diagram also, nasal pit was communicating with the stomachium, and with the fusion of these two processes, nasal pits get separated from the stomachium. Okay. Okay, and then finally, this maxillary prominence actually, or the derivative of maxillary prominence, finally, it forms the part of the cheek, maxilla bone, zygomatic bone, as well as lateral portion of the upper lip, while this philtrum of the upper lip is formed by the fusion of medial nasal prominence. Okay, this is the thing. But recently, or according to some author, recent investigations is suggestive that the philtrum of nose is also some according to some author, philtrum of upper lip is also supposed to be developed from this maxillary prominence only. But in our old textbook, it is given that philtrum of the upper lip developed from the medial nasal prominence. Okay, any problem? Any problem? Okay, so we are talking about the derivative of maxillary prominence, which forms the part of the cheek, maxilla bone, zygomatic bone, lateral portion of the upper lip, Hard and soft palate also develop from maxilla, which will be more clear when we study about the development of palate. For now, remember maxilla give rise to the secondary palate, both hard and soft palate, which is clear from this diagram also. The maxillary prominence starts to develop self-like projection from its inner aspect, resulting in formation of this secondary palate, while primary palate is formed from the medial nasal prominence of the frontonasal process. This will be more clear when we study about the palate. For now, let's just remember of this much. Then the next prominence is the mandibular prominence, which is also a paired prominence. Okay, mandibular prominence are two in number, which forms the caudal boundary of stomachium. These are the mandibular prominence, and this mandibular prominence also grows medially and ventrally with the growth of the underlying mesenchyme. So they grow medially and ventrally, fusing in the midline. And this mandibular prominence forms the part of the lower aspect of the cheek, lower lip, chin, and lower jaw. So lower lip, lower jaw are formed by mandibular prominence, upper lip, upper jaw are formed by maxillary prominence. And remember, within this phase, this derivative of mandibular prominence or this lower lip, chin, lower jaw are the first part of face to form during the process of formation of development of face. Okay. So this lower jaw, lower lip is as it is formed by the mandibular fusion of mandibular prominence and midline. This median cleft lip or lower lip is a very rare condition. Like we have talked about, or we have heard about the cleft lip, and even we have seen about the cleft lip, cleft jaw. Okay, so this cleft lip, cleft jaw are more common towards the upper lip and upper jaw, but median cleft lip or the cleft lip towards the lower lip is very rare condition. Okay, remember this as well. Then let's go for the nasolacrimal duct, how nasolacrimal duct is formed and how finally the continuity of phase occur. So initially, the maxillary and lateral nasal prominence are separated by a deep furrow. See here, this is the maxillary prominence, okay? And here this is, what is this? Level this structure, what is this? What is this I'm pointing? Speak out.
Lateral nasal process.
Lateral nasal process. What is this structure? What is this depression?
Nasal pit.
Nasal pit, and here this is medial nasal process. Okay, so see here, as we can see, initially this maxillary prominence and lateral nasal prominence are separated by a deep depression or a deep furrow, which is known as nasolacrimal groove. Okay, it is separated by a nasolacrimal groove. Then after what happened, the ectoderm present within the floor of this nasolacrimal groove begins to thicken into a rod shaped thick cord of cell. And then this thick rod shaped cord of cell begins to sink into the underlying mesenchyme. Okay, it sinks down within the mesenchyme, and the cell at the center of this rod begins to degenerate, so that it results in the canalization of the cord, resulting in the formation of nasolacrimal duct. What happened? Firstly, as we know from this diagram also, we are clear that maxillary prominence and lateral nasal prominence are separated by a deep depression. Okay, so within this deep depression, which is known as nasolacrimal groove, the floor of the nasolacrimal groove, ectodermal cell present within the floor of nasolacrimal groove begins to proliferate, forming a rod of cell, thick or solid rod of cell. Okay, so this solid rod of cell later on begins to depress, or they begins to sink into the underlying mesenchyme, and then after the central cells begins to degenerate, so that the thick rod or the solid rod begins to canalize, forming a duct known as nasolacrimal duct. Okay, and finally, after merging of this maxillary prominence with lateral nasal prominence, it results in the continuity of cheek with the dorsum of the nose. Okay, initially they are separated by a deep furrow. Then later on, after formation of this nasolacrimal duct, this maxillary prominence also fuses with lateral nasal prominence and results in the continuity of cheek with the dorsum of the nose or ella of the nose. Okay, so then after, as we know, this lacrimal duct consists of upper expanded part and then duct system, which opens into the inferior meatus. So cranial end of the nasolacrimal duct expands to form the lacrimal sac. Okay, the duct usually become completely patent only after birth. This nasolacrimal duct usually become completely patent only after birth, and Occasionally, part of the tongue may fail to canalize, resulting in atresia of the nasolacrimal duct. Okay, and in about 6% of newborn, like the blockage of nasolacrimal duct shows clinical signs and symptoms in only 6% of individual. Okay, so this is about the formation of nasolacrimal duct. Clear about the formation of nasolacrimal duct and face as well. Shall we go for the development of palate now? Are people there? Just to revise, we should remember five facial prominences, which are frontal nasal prominence, appeared maxillary prominence, and appeared mandibular prominence. Okay, so where they develop, how they develop, and what part of the primordia fuse with what structure, that thing you have to remember. And finally, the final development of or the derivative of this frontal process, maxillary process, and mandibular process are the thing to remember within the facial development. So then let's go for the development of palate. And remember, within the development of palate, this palate developed from two sources or two primordia, which is primary palate and secondary palate. Palate, which is divided into primary palate and secondary palate, they develop from two different sources. And then this palatogenesis or development of palate begins at the end of fifth week and is completed only at the end of 12, by the end of 12. Okay. It begins at fifth week and completed by 12th week of intrauterine life. So this primary palate, let's talk about the development of primary palate. Primary palate is developed from intermaxillary segment. Okay, so this intermaxillary segment, which is developed from the medial fused medial nasal prominence. So here, see this. This is the view of the maxillary prominence and frontal nasal process from the lower aspect. Okay, we are viewing this structure from the lower aspect or downward. And this primary palate is formed from the intermaxillary segment. Intermaxillary segment is actually a wedge-shaped mesenchyme which is formed by merging of the medial nasal prominence. See, these are the two medial nasal prominence. These two medial nasal prominence fuse with each other in the midline, and after fusion of medial nasal prominence, a wedge-shaped mesenchyme proliferate, resulting in formation of intermaxillary segment. Okay, and intermaxillary segment is the main or the only source of primary palate. So primary palate is formed from the premaxillary part of the maxilla, or let's say from the intermaxillary segment, and this primary palate represents only a small part of adult hard palate. Do you remember norma basalis? When we studied about norma basalis, we have studied about the hard palate, and within the hard palate in midline you must have noticed one fossa, that is incisive fossa, isn't it? So the part of the small section of the palate just in front of incisive fossa is primary palate, and this primary palate hold the upper four incisor teeth. Okay, so primary palate develops from the intermaxillary segment of the medial nasal prominence. Remember this. While secondary palate begins to develop early in the sixth week from the internal aspect of maxillary prominence. Secondary palate, the source of secondary palate is from the maxillary prominence. So suppose this is coronal section through the oral cavity. Okay, suppose this is the maxillary prominence. From the inner aspect of maxillary prominence, the mesenchyme from the inner aspect of maxillary prominence project into a palatal self-like mesenchymal projection known as lateral palatine process or palatal self. Okay, which occurs in the sixth week of intrauterine life, and the mesenchyme from the internal aspect of the maxillary prominence develops into a lateral palatine process or palatal cells, which projects inferomedially on each side of the developing tongue. See here, this is a developing tongue. Initially, the palatal process or this lateral palatine process is projecting inferomedially towards the developing tongue. Okay. Then later on, what happened? As the jaw developed, both upper and lower jaw when starts to develop, or as the jaw developed, tongue become relatively smaller in size and they moves inferiorly. See here, in this case, tongue is initially present superior to this palatal cells, lateral palatine process. And as jaw begins to develop, tongue becomes relatively smaller in size and they starts to descend downward. So that, see here, During 7th and 8th week, the lateral palatine process or the palatal cells, what happen? They elongate and ascend to a horizontal position which lies superior to the tongue. Okay, they elongate and ascend upward to a horizontal position just which lies just above the tongue. Now, gradually, as these palatal cells are elongating and projecting toward each other, gradually these two processes approach each other and fuse in the midline. Okay, these two structures fuse in the midline. And as I've mentioned earlier, the incisive foramina is the landmark between primary and secondary palate. Okay, you recall about the hard palate within the norma basalis. This incisive foramen is the landmark between primary and secondary palate. So the part of the palate just in front of the incisive foramina is the primary palate, while the part behind is the secondary palate. So secondary part palate is the largest one, while primary palate is a very small section of hard palate which holds only the upper four incisor teeth. Okay. Then after what happened? So here once again, this is the palatine lateral palatine process which is projecting inferior medially towards the developing tongue, and as the jaw develop, this tongue become relatively smaller and descend down, resulting in the horizontal, the palatal cells to place horizontally, and they elongate toward each other, fuse with each other in midline. Okay, and beside the fusion of two palatal cells in midline, the nasal septum, which is also forming. Nasal septum, which actually is forming from the internal part of Moore's medial nasal prominences. Remember the medial nasal prominences. So internal part of medial nasal prominence give rise to the nasal septum, which is descending downward. So nasal septum, lower end of the nasal septum also fuse with the two palatal cells in the midline, resulting in completion of this right and left nasal cavity as well as separation of this nasal cavity with the oral cavity. So this is how the nasal cavity and oral cavity are present or formed: superiorly nasal cavity, inferiorly oral cavity, separated by this hard as well as soft palate. Okay, so this is how palate is formed. Palate consists of two-part primary palate, secondary palate. The main source of primary palate is the intermaxillary segment or intermaxillary process, which is the projection from the fused medial nasal prominences, while secondary palate is formed by two lateral palatine processes which are formed from the proliferation of mesenchyme of the maxillary process on its internal aspect, and these two palatine processes fuse with each other to form the secondary palate. And finally, this primary palate also fuse with secondary palate and complete the separation of this nasal cavity with the oral cavity. Okay, so here this is to recall. Here this is the hard palate shown here. Incisive foramen or is present here, just in front of incisive foramen. This small section, only this much small section, is the primary palate, which holds the upper four incisor teeth, while the remaining all is the secondary palate. And secondary palate is further divided into hard palate and soft palate, isn't it? As you remember. So then what happened? Now, till now we have talked about the mesenchymal fusion. It is a mesenchymal fusion forms this palate. Okay. Then after, now how bone develop within this palate is ossification occurs here. Ossification occurs in primary palate from the premaxillary part of the maxilla, which lost the incisor teeth. Okay, ossification occurs separately for the primary palate. Then after, ossification extends from the maxilla. Now, as the maxilla, which is already formed from the maxillary prominence, ossification center spread out or extend from maxilla to the palatine bone. Okay, from maxilla to palatine bone, and from maxilla and palatine bone to this lateral palatine process. Okay, firstly bone get ossified, and from then body of the bone get ossified, and from there the lateral palatine process get ossified, resulting in the formation of hard palate. Okay. Okay, then after, the posterior part of this process. So this posteriormost part of this palatine process fails to fuse or fails to ossify. So they extend posteriorly below beyond the nasal septum to fuse to form the soft palate. Anterior part get ossified and form the hard palate, but posterior part fails to ossify and they extend beyond the nasal cavity and remain as a soft tissue known as soft palatum. Okay, and its soft conical projection called uvula is present at the center of the midline of the soft palate. So the median palatine raphe, we can use your tip of the tongue and feel the hard palate. In midline, we can feel median palatine raphe. So this median palatine raphe indicates the line of fusion of lateral palatine. Okay, you can try it yourself just now. Just use your tip of the tongue. In midline of the hard palate, we can feel a median midline palatine raphe, which represents the fusion of the two lateral palatine process in midline. Okay. So this is all about the formation of face as well as palate. Then we'll go for some deformity, some common deformity present form during this facial as well as palatal development. So there are different type of cleft deformity. Okay. So this cleft deformity can be divided into anterior cleft deformity, posterior cleft deformities, and combination of both anterior as well as posterior cleft deformities. And this division of this cleft deformity into anterior posterior cleft deformity is actually demarcated by this incisive foramen. As we have talked about incisive foramen, which is considered as the dividing landmark between anterior and posterior cleft deformity, or dividing landmark between primary and secondary palate. So if cleft deformity is present only in primary palate, it is considered as anterior cleft deformity. If it is present in secondary palate, it is considered as secondary or posterior cleft deformity. And if the cleft deformity is present both in primary and secondary palate, it is known as combination of anterior and posterior cleft deformity. So this cleft deformity can be divided on the basis of this incisive foramina, or let's say incisive foramina will be the bony landmark for division of this cleft deformity, classification of cleft deformity. So some detail about anterior cleft deformity. In case of anterior cleft deformity, partial or complete lack of fusion of this maxillary prominence. See, anterior cleft deformity occurs if maxillary prominence fails to fuse with medial nasal prominence on one or both sides. Okay. If maxillary prominence fails to fuse with the medial nasal prominence on one or both sides, that results in the anterior cleft deformity. And this anterior cleft deformity may vary in severity, like from barely visible defect in vermilion border of the lip only. We know this red margin of lip is known as vermilion border. So a slight barely visible defect in vermilion border of lip to extension into even up to the nose. So the cleft deformity vary in severity. Okay. And in severe cases, what happened? This anterior cleft deformity extend to a deeper level and form the cleft upper jaw. Not just the lip is involved. In case of severe cases, even the upper jaw are cleft. Results in severe case of the anterior cleft deformity, which results in the cleft of upper jaw, where maxilla splits between lateral incisor and canine, because we know the endomaxillary segment gives primary maxilla, which holds the four incisor teeth, and lateral to that the canine is held by the secondary palate or from the maxilla. So if maxilla and medial nasal prominence fails to fuse, in severe cases it may even result in the cleft deformity, where maxilla splits between lateral incisor and canine. Okay, I hope you people are getting my points. Then this is the picture to show the different type of anterior cleft deformity. Here in this picture we can see lateral cleft lip only. Here the cleft or this failure to fusion occurs only at the lip level, while in this picture both lip as well as upper jaw fails to fuse. So in second picture it represents the cleft upper jaw. Here this is cleft lip, cleft upper jaw, and here on the third picture we can see cleft between primary and secondary palate. See, this primary palate has to fuse normally with the secondary palate, and if primary palate fails to fuse with secondary palate, it results in cleft between primary and secondary palate. And here this primary palate just is present in suspended form without fusing with the secondary palate. Then another severe form of this anterior cleft deformity is oblique facial cleft. Here, in case of oblique facial cleft, what happened? Oblique facial cleft results in failure of fusion of maxillary prominence with the lateral and medial nasal prominence. Okay, if maxillary prominence fails to fuse both with the lateral as well as medial nasal prominence, it results in oblique facial cleft, where the nasolacrimal duct, in case of this oblique facial cleft, is exposed externally. Okay, this result because of failure of fusion of maxillary prominence with the medial as well as lateral nasal prominence. So this is just the picture to show different form of anterior cleft deformity. Here this is cleft lip, bilateral cleft lip, here cleft lip as well as jaw and palate. All this is the severe form where all lip, jaw and palate are cleft. And here this picture shows the oblique facial cleft where this nasolacrimal top may be exposed externally. Then next type of cleft deformity is posterior cleft deformity. And in case of posterior cleft deformity, severity varies from cleavage of entire secondary palate to cleavage of uvula. Okay, so severity may vary. There might be cleavage in just uvula only, or this cleavage begins from uvula through the entire secondary palate. In this picture, cleft secondary palate. Only this secondary palate is cleft here. Okay, in this picture as well. Here, while in this picture, just the uvula, that we know the soft palate has a muscular extension in midline, so just uvula may be cleft or bifurcated uvula may be present. And then this posterior cleft deformity occurs because of lack of fusion of this palatal slabs or lateral palatine process. If cells fuse results in the posterior cleft deformity. The next is the median or midline cleft lip. Okay, so median or midline cleft lip is a very rare abnormality. Most common is the lateral cleft deformity, which may be unilateral or bilateral. But this median or midline cleft lip is very rare abnormality and is caused by incomplete merging of two medial nasal prominences. If two medial nasal prominences fails to fuse or there is a partial fusion of this medial nasal prominences in midline, it results in midline cleft lip. Okay, and this occurs obviously because of deficiency of mesenchyme, where if the mesenchymal tissue fails to fuse, it results in this cleft deformity. And the midline cleft lip is one of the features of Moore syndrome, which is the genetic disease which occurs because of the autosomal recessive. It is considered as the autosomal recessive trait. Okay. Now, there might be a question like, what is the reason for this cleft deformity? What are the causes of this cleft deformity? Actually, it is still in confusion. Okay, most of the cleft lip and palate results from multiple factors. Right? It is not like this is the single factor or this is the single reason. It results from multiple factors, which may be genetic as well as non-genetic. Okay, it's not like all the cleft lip are genetic results because of genetic reason. It may be resulting because of genetic as well as non-genetic reason. Some cleft lip and palate appears as part of the syndrome determined by single gene mutation. Maybe because of single gene mutation, it may result in cleft palate or cleft lip, while others are part of chromosomal syndrome, like when we study about the genetics, but trisomy 13, that is Tau syndrome has cleft lip and cleft palate. Okay, so it may be result of this chromosomal syndrome as well, or a few cases of cleft lip and palate appears to have been caused by some teratogenic factors, mainly, especially, for example, anticonvulsant drugs, if used during pregnancy, are supposed to result in this cleft lip and palate. Okay, so the exact reason of cleft lip and palate are still unclear, but it may be because of genetic reason, because of some non-genetic reason, because of some teratogenic factor. Okay, so these are some example of this cleft lip and palate. Then finally, to summarize about the development of face, we have now known like five facial prominences appear: frontonasal prominence, maxillary prominence, and mandibular prominence. Frontonasal prominence give rise to forehead, bridge of nose, medial and lateral nasal prominences, while medial nasal prominence give rise to philtrum of the upper lip, tip of the nose. Lateral nasal prominence give rise to ala of the nose. Maxillary prominence give rise to sixth lateral portion of the upper lip, including the secondary palate, and mandibular prominence give rise to the lower lip. Okay, so this is just to summarize as a whole. So we are done with the development of face. So any confusion? Do I need to repeat any part? Let's have your attendance. So any confusion? Do I need to repeat any part? Are you people there? Are you people even there or you are already asleep? Okay, I hope you people are clear then. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, ma'am.